This conference will now be recorded.
Sir, we can't hear you.
No, sir.
సార్ మైక్ అన్మ్యూట్ చేశారు సార్ గ్రీన్ కలర్ చూపిస్తుంది సార్
Students, can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Is my voice clear? Students, is my voice clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Sir.
Okay, that's good. Right, so let's get back to this slide now. 45-year-old male came to the OPD in a remote PHC with burning micturition. Urine routine microscopy shows numerous pus cells. UTI was diagnosed and medical officer gave cotrimoxazole BD for 5 days. 1 week later, patient developed severe pallor, palpitation, and jaundice. The lab values show increased LDH, increased serum bilirubin, and increased reticulocyte count. The peripheral smear shows irregular cells like this. So what is the diagnosis? Can anyone tell me what is the diagnosis? Can type in the chat. I'll just go back to the previous slide. This patient came with UTI to the primary healthcare center, and he was given cotrimoxazole, an antibiotic, for 5 days. After 1 week, the patient developed severe pallor, palpitations, and jaundice. And the lab values show increased LDH, increased serum bilirubin, and increased reticulocyte count. And the peripheral smear shows irregular cells like the ones that are marked here in the next slide. What is your diagnosis? Can anyone tell me what is the diagnosis? You can type in the diagnosis in the chat box. You can be sure it is G6PD deficiency. That is the right answer. So what makes you think it is G6PD deficiency? First of all, let's consider the clinical scenario here. The patient came with UTI. UTI, which was diagnosed by the primary healthcare officer, and the patient was put on antibiotics. So here, the antibiotics could be a trigger, or the infection could be a trigger for the development of hemolytic anemia. How do you know it's hemolytic anemia? Because the patient developed pallor and jaundice. So if there's anemia with jaundice, it's supposedly hemolytic anemia. And also the lab values show increased LDH, increased serum bilirubin, and increased reticulocyte count. We've studied in the previous classes that hemolytic anemia definitely presents with all these three factors. And the peripheral smear shows irregular cells like these. And also one more slide here. What are these here? This particular slide, what does it show? If you know the answer, you can type in the chat box. Haynes bodies. That's very good. Haynes bodies is the right answer. You can see Haynes bodies in G6PD deficiency. Now, obviously, the stain that is used here is not the same stain that is used to stain the blood smear. What type of stain is used here? Can anyone tell me? What type of stain is used here to identify Haynes bodies in a case of G6PD deficiency? Very good, Chad. It's called supravital crystal violet, not methyl violet, crystal violet. Good. So the diagnosis is G6PD deficiency. So today's class is going to be a short class on G6PD deficiency. What are the investigations for diagnosis here? The peripheral smear shows white cells. It has Haynes bodies after staining with supravital crystal violet. And it has polychromasia, multiple colors of RBC or multiple levels of pallor can be seen in the RBC. G6PD levels, the enzyme G6PD levels have to be titrated. Fluorescent spot in UV. G6PD. G6PD is a metabolic enzyme. It's involved in pentose phosphate pathway. You must have studied this in biochemistry long back in your first year. Especially important in red blood cell metabolism. It also protects red blood cells from the effects of potentially harmful molecules called reactive oxygen species. Now, all the fuss about COVID-19 that's going on right now is because of the action of COVID-19's antigens on certain molecules, which causes a lot of reactive oxygen species. So there's a lot of oxidative damage to the cells because of the production of these, and cytokine storm that can activate this potentially harmful molecules and eventually lead to organ damage, mostly targeting the lungs here in the case of COVID-19. So anything that is essential or useful to counteract this sort of oxidative damage will be very useful for the body. So there's a lot of talk about antioxidant vitamins and antioxidant drugs that are being taken as supplements these days. So, a lot of people are encouraged now to take vitamin C, vitamin E, glutathione, and etc. All these are natural antioxidants, which is available in all sorts of foods here, especially in fruits. So G6PD deficiency is the most common disease producing enzyme abnormalities in humans, affecting more than 200 million individuals worldwide. The highest prevalence is in the Middle East, that is Mediterranean, tropical Africa, and Asia. So Middle Eastern countries are the part of that peninsula over there: Saudi Arabia, Oman, Yemen, UAE, and Turkey, Iran, Iraq, all those countries. They're the Middle East countries, and tropical Africa, and a part of Asia. G6PD deficiency is caused by 400 different mutations in gene coding for G6PD. Only few of them causes the clinical symptoms of the disease. So luckily, most of them are asymptomatic. Only few of the mutations are symptomatic. G6PD deficiency is an inherited disease. It's not an acquired disease. The disease is characterized by hemolytic anemia caused by the inability to detoxify oxidizing agents. So because of the loss of ability to detoxify oxidizing agents, there is destruction to the RBC. G6PD deficiency is X-linked. It's an X-linked recessive disorder. The clinical manifestation of G6PD deficiency is neonatal jaundice appearing 1 to 4 days after birth. So that is the most severe clinical manifestation of G6PD deficiency. Neonatal jaundice appearing 1 to 4 days after birth. This is the inheritance you can see here. So the G6PD gene is XQ28 allele. It's located on the X chromosome for a female carrier, and the other side is a normal one. Here it's an affected male. Just one X is enough because the other one is Y chromosome. So G6PD deficiency is obviously more common in males than in females, because in females there can be carriers, there can be symptomatic patients, but in males it's mostly affected males. There's no carrier male. The prevalence of G6PD worldwide, here you can see the darkest part of it is seen in the Middle Eastern countries, and it's seen in Southeast Asian countries, and it's seen in part of Africa, tropical part of Africa. What happens in G6PD deficiency? The G6PD here, first of all, glucose is converted to glucose 6-phosphate, which is then used as an enzyme here, right? There's a HMP pathway, it's a glycolytic pathway, G6PD used for that, and also in the production of lactate here. But G6PD here is essentially used for the reduction of NADP plus to NADPH. So reduced NADPH, that is NADPH, is necessary for this reaction to occur. Here you have certain drugs, infections or thiobenes that cause oxidant stress. So peroxides are formed. Now peroxides can give rise to superoxides. So O2 is normal. O minus is supposed to be a highly oxidative agent. So O minus is a superoxide that can be used for, that can be harmful for the cells. That is why a glutathione peroxidase is the enzyme that is produced because of glutathione reductase, and it will produce H2O and will reduce the H2O to H2O. If this is not available, that means glucose 6-phosphate dehydrogenase deficiency impairs the ability of the erythrocyte to form NADPH. So if NADPH is not formed from NADP because of the lack of G6PD here, glucose 6-phosphate dehydrogenase enzyme, if this is deficient, NADPH is not formed. So NADPH is not formed, that means
Sir, we can't hear you, sir.
glutathione is not reduced here. Glutathione is not reduced, that means it cannot be used for further reduction of or oxidation of the glutathione ion peroxidase. So it cannot be used for oxidization of the H2O2 to H2O. So that is the reason G6PD plays a major role in the RBC membrane structure. Pathophysiology is diminished G6PD activity impairs the ability of the cell to form NADPH that is essential for the maintenance of the reduced glutathione
Sir, we can't hear, sir.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes, sir, but some disturbance is coming, sir.
Okay. How about now?
Okay, sir.
Okay. So let me continue. So they are removed from the circulation by macrophages in the spleen and liver. So just like hereditary spherocytosis, a little part of hemolysis occurs in the spleen also. But the spleen is not the major role in hemolysis here. The destruction of the red cell membrane because of superoxides or because of free radicals is the major mechanism in G6PD deficiency. So why does it have more effect on RBCs when G6PD is present in all cells? Although G6PD deficiency occurs in all cells of the affected individual, it is most severe in erythrocytes where the pentose phosphate pathway provides the only means of generating NADPH. The erythrocyte has no nucleus or ribosome and cannot renew its supply of the enzyme. Thus, red cells are particularly vulnerable to enzyme variants with diminished stability. So it has no nucleus or ribosomes and cannot renew its supply of the enzyme. So red blood cells are particularly vulnerable to enzyme variants with diminished stability. What are the precipitating factors in G6PD? We already discussed one of them is antibiotics, which was discussed in the case that we given before. Most individuals who have inherited one of the many G6PD mutations do not show clinical manifestations. They are asymptomatic. However, some patients with G6PD deficiency develop hemolytic anemia if they're treated with an oxidant drug, if they ingest fevabine, or they contract a severe infection. So infection is obviously the most common cause of hemolysis in G6PD deficiency, followed by oxidant drugs and then followed by fevabine. Clinical manifestations are majority are asymptomatic. Neonatal jaundice, peak incidence of clinical onset is between day 2 and 3. Acute hemolytic attacks, there are 3 types of triggers. One is fevabines, infections, and drugs. Starts with malaise, weakness, and abdominal pain or lumbar pain. Anemia and jaundice are predominantly seen. What is phavism? Phavism is formally defined as a hemolytic response to the consumption of broad beans. Phavism is a disorder characterized by hemolytic reaction to the consumption of all individuals with phavism show G6PD deficient RBCs give less hemolysis. Infection is the most common precipitating factor of hemolysis in G6PD deficiency. The inflammatory response to infection results in the generation of free radicals in macrophages, which can diffuse into the red blood cells and cause oxidative damage. Here you see anti-malarials, sulfonamides, antibacterials or antibiotics, and antipyretics or analgesics. Something that caused definitive G6PD deficiency here: primaquine, dapsone, chlorproguanil, sulfamethoxazole, dapsone, cotrimoxazole, which we discussed in the first slide, nalidixic acid, and nitrofurantoin. Here, acetanilide and phenazopyridine, that is pyridium. The ones that are having possible risk are chloroquine, sulfasalazine, sulfadimide, ciprofloxacin, norfloxacin, ethyl salicylic acid, and high dose, that is in high dose greater than 3 grams per day. The other ones are low risk. G6PD variants are caused by point mutations in G6PD gene. Some of these point mutations do not disturb the structure of the enzyme's active site and do not affect the enzyme activity. Other point mutation may lead to production of mutant enzymes with one or more of the activity, altered catalytic activity, decreased stability, an alteration of bonding affinity for NADP plus or G6 phosphate. They can be classified into 3 categories, but we have class 1, 2, 3 mutations and 4 and 5. Here, the primary one is severe deficiency with no or minimal detected enzyme activity, often associated with chronic non-stereocytic anemia, occurs even in the absence of oxidative stress. There need not be any triggers here. You can have severe deficiency, and that is why there is going to be chronic non-stereocytic anemia, CNSA, and it is seen in class 1 mutations. Then class 2 mutations is the G6PD of the Mediterranean origin, severe deficiency with 1 to 10% residual enzyme activity, normal stability but very low activity in all RBC. Class 3 is G6PD group A. This is normally moderate deficiency, 10 to 60% residual enzyme activity is seen. RBCs contain unstable G6PD enzyme but normal activity in younger RBC in reticulocytes. So more better survival in class 3. Class 4 normal enzyme activity at 60 to 150%, increased enzyme activity and at greater than 150%. This is class 5. So class 4 and class 5 are unaffected, class 3 is moderately affected, class 1 and 2 are severe. Now neonatal jaundice is G6PD deficiency. Neonatal jaundice related to G6PD is very rarely present at birth. At 2 to 3 days, peak incidence is seen. Most cases, anemia is not severe, but jaundice can be seen. And NNJ can be very severe in some G6PD deficient babies, especially in association with prematurity, infection, or environmental factors such as naphthalene, camphor balls that are used in babies' bedding and clothing. So naphthalene and camphor balls can also produce hemolysis in neonates with G6. Within the reticuloendothelium further degradation to the carbon monoxide, because endogenous most exclusively by this pathway, hemolysis can be quantitated by determining blood COLB levels. Elevated carboxyhemoglobin levels have been correlated with increased hemolysis in fetuses and neonates suffering from immune hemolytic disease, and even with kernicterus and death in G6PD deficient infants. So elevated carboxyhemoglobin is the primary cause of kernicterus and death in G6PD deficient infants. Even the risk of sepsis is increased in case of G6PD deficiency, especially among preterm infants. The prevalence of G6PD deficiency among 170 infants with birth weight less than 2 kg admitted to a neonatal intensive care nursery was 5.3%. Stage 2 necrotizing enterocolitis was 6.9-fold higher compared with matched cohort. So increased chance of sepsis, increased chance of infection. Yeah, hello? Am I not audible?
Sir, your slides and cursor is going faster than like your voice, sir.
Is my voice not clear or are the slides not clear? Do you need to explain the slides?
Sir, they are going fast, sir.
My voice is... Okay, I get it. I'm gonna go a little slow. Can you guys hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Right. I don't know what's wrong today. It must be the internet connection or must be the voice control over my laptop. Right. So risk of sepsis. Increased risk of sepsis has been reported among preterm infants with G6PD deficiency. So the chances of infection and the risk of sepsis is higher in case of preterm infants, especially with G6PD deficiency. And that can be postulated with a study that shows stage 2 necrotizing enterocolitis was 6.9-fold higher compared with the matched cohort. How do you diagnose G6PD deficiency? Laboratory diagnosis. Blood tests can detect G6PD deficiency either by measuring the G6PD enzyme activity between episodes or by measuring bilirubin during an episode. So first one is the direct measurement of G6PD activity in RBCs by spectrophotometer. It is a spectrophotometric quantitative enzyme assay. That is the definitive biochemical test, right? Spectrophotometric quantitative enzyme assay. So measurement of G6PD activity. That is the definitive biochemical test. The second one is a semi-quantitative screening test. So it's not a confirmatory test, it's a screening test. It's fluorescent spot test, right? Fluorescent spot test. The third one is fractionated serum bilirubin. That is, total serum bilirubin is increased. Direct or conjugated serum bilirubin is normal, and indirect or unconjugated bilirubin is increased. So looking at the fractionated serum bilirubin to see if direct or indirect is increased. In this case, indirect will be increased. So going to the next slide here. Complete blood picture and reticulocyte count profile. Obviously, the reticulocyte count is increased here and it shows low hemoglobin anemia. Fifth one is genetic test for variant. So what type of genetic variant of the enzyme is seen? By DNA or polymerase chain reaction, PCR. The sixth one is blood smear with supravital crystal violet stains for Haynes body, to look for Haynes body. Blood film may show contracted and fragmented cells, bite cells, and blister cells. The first slide showing you the case and the second slide showing you the peripheral smear had bite cells marked in it. So the next one is treatment. The most important measure is prevention, avoidance of the drugs and foods that cause hemolysis, vaccination against some common pathogens may prevent infection-induced attacks. Example, hepatitis A and hepatitis B. In the acute phase of hemolysis, blood transfusion may be necessary or even dialysis in acute renal failure. Blood transfusion is an important symptomatic measure as the transfused red cells are generally not G6PD deficient. So there is no G6PD deficiency in the transfused red cells and they will live the normal lifespan in the recipient circulation. So blood transfusion is an important symptomatic measure in cases of severe G6PD deficiency. Some patients may benefit from splenectomy as this is an important site of red cell destruction. Folic acid should be used in any disorder featuring a high red cell turnover. Although vitamin E and selenium have antioxidant properties, their use does not decrease the severity of G6PD deficiency. How was G6PD deficiency discovered? It was discovered because of primaquine. This drug has not been very prominent subsequently because it is not necessary for the treatment of life-threatening Plasmodium falciparum malaria. Today, there is a revival of interest in primaquine because it is the only effective agent for, number one, eliminating the gametophytes of Plasmodium falciparum, thus preventing further transmission. Number two, eliminating the hypnozoites of Plasmodium vivax, thus preventing endogenous relapse. So that is why there is a revival of interest in primaquine. And you have to look for or check for G6PD deficiency when you are giving primaquine, because this is the most common agent that causes hemolysis. Last slide, pyruvate kinase deficiency is also an enzymopathy of the RBC membrane. It also causes hemolysis. It's an autosomal recessive disorder. Deficient ATP production producing chronic hemolytic anemia. Clinical features are hydrops fetalis, neonatal jaundice, or compensated hemolytic anemia. These are the three features in severity. Investigations are peripheral smear shows prickle cells, that is contracted RBC with spicules. Contracted RBC with spicules. And it has decreased enzymatic activity, pyruvate kinase deficiency. This is the peripheral smear that shows prickle cells. These are the prickle cells. The ones that are marked are prickle cells. They are seen in pyruvate kinase deficiency. How do you treat? It is mainly supportive. Folic acid supplement should be given. Blood transfusion if necessary. Iron chelation in cases of iron overload. Splenectomy may be beneficial in more severe disease. And bone marrow transplantation for severe cases when a sibling donor is available. So that is the treatment of pyruvate kinase deficiency. And so yeah, that is the end of today's class. If you have any doubts, you can ask me in the chat box. If there are no doubts, we can end this class.